Okay, good afternoon, everybody. So let's continue with our discussion on SVM. So yesterday we just introduced the what is called as the hard margin SVM. Okay, and the hard margin SVM, the important condition for this running this algorithm is
Excuse me,
always
sir.
So your
yeah.
screen is not
Screen
sharing.
visible.
Okay, okay. Thanks. All right. So we were looking at hard margin SVM. So in the case of hard margin SVM, what we have is that the input has to be linearly separable. Okay. So the input, this has to be linearly separable. Okay. And then, so when you have an input like this, what you are looking for is amongst all the lines you are looking for, how much can you get the widest margin, so to speak, right? So given the lines, so you would like to find as wide as margin as possible to separate the positive and the negative examples. So let's say these are the negative examples, and let's say these are the positive examples. Okay, and the points that are lying on the boundary. So basically, these two are not the only thing. So we will have like a proper thing. So this is W transpose X plus B equal to 0. This is W transpose X plus B equal to 1. This is W transpose X plus B equal to -1. Okay, so these are all the three hyperplanes, and the points that are on the margin, these are called as the support vectors. Okay, and the width between these lines, this is called as the margin, and you would like to maximize the margin subject to yi times W transpose X plus B. This W transpose Xi plus B is greater than or equal to 1 for all your training data points. Okay, I belongs to the cardinality of D. So this is what is hard margin SVM, but now we need to put some mathematics here because my margin is just English. So if you work out the math, so if you remember, the shortest distance between any parallel surface is to go in a direction normal to the surface. So in a 3-dimension, these hyperplanes will be like two parallel planes, and the path to the two hyperplanes is in a direction normal to it. So using the math that we did a few class back, we can show that margin is given by 1 over norm W. Okay, so subject to, we have the same. So then maximizing margin, maximizing the norm W is same as minimizing half W transpose W. W transpose W is norm square, right? So subject to yi times W transpose Xi plus B greater than or equal to 1. This is called as the primal. Okay, then we saw like how do we write the dual for this. So yeah, so that I will probably not again go through because it will take a lot of time. So what I will do instead is I will directly write the dual. So if you have any questions on that, you can actually refer my lectures from last class. Okay, so this is primal, and then the dual will be maximize summation mu I minus half double summation. This is over I going from 1 to n. Okay, so n is the number of data points. So n is equal to number of data points, number of training samples. Okay, so n is number of training samples, and this is, you have double summation I going from 1 to n, j going from 1 to n, mu I, mu j, yi, yj, xi transpose xj. Okay, subject to the condition that summation mu I yi, this is equal to 0, I equal to 1 to n, and mu i's are greater than or equal to 0. So this was the primal and this was the dual. And so now, yesterday we also saw that we can also look at what is called as soft margin SVM. Okay, so soft margin SVM, and the idea there is, okay, this diagram is not very neatly done, so let me do once again. So let's say we have these lines. So these are your lines, and the positive points, let us say, are over here. And let's say we have negative points over on this side. Okay, and then as usual, this is the support vectors. So this is a case where your data was linearly separable, but if it is not linearly separable, what do you do? That is what is the question, right? So in that case, so what we do, so let's take an example where the data is actually not linearly separable. Okay, so same example, all the points like this are still there, but there is one point, a couple of points, let us say, one of them is here. Let me draw in appropriate colors. So I did a mistake. So let me just correct this. I typically draw so the red points are negative. So let's just fix that. Okay, so yeah, so these are all the positive points, right? So the positive points I indicated in blue. It's not a major thing, but let me just do it anyway. So these are all the negative points. And suppose there was a, there were a couple of points like this. So this original training data was linearly separable, but once you got a few points in this manner, right, now you cannot find a hyperplane that can separate these points. So then what you say is that suppose instead of directly being able to separate all the points, perhaps you can get away by separating almost all of them. So in that sense, we define what is called as xis. So this was xi1, and this guy is xi2. Okay, so the xis are defined with respect to the appropriate hyperplane. So the positive hyperplanes will be this blue line, and the other one will be this line. Okay, so it's defined as the difference of, like, it's like a tolerance. So you should typically be greater than 1, but you allow some kind of a tolerance. So in that sense, when we look at a primal problem like that in the soft margin, what we get is very similar to the original problem with a few extra constraints. Okay, so the few extra constraints are here. So that is plus C summation xi I going from 1 to n. And instead of being able to appropriately classify all the things, you are allowing some kind of a tolerance. Okay. So there may be, you may want to just experiment with this and just understand this, why this is happening. Okay. I don't think this is difficult, so I won't dwell on it unless anybody has any questions here. But this is actually quite easy. Okay. So if you have any questions, this is the time to ask. Okay. So why this comes as summation xi, but the picture that you need to keep in mind is this. Okay. So this is the primal, and I don't have the time, but I will try if today there is time. Otherwise, I will maybe I will leave a recording for you to watch later. But if you take the dual of this problem, something very remarkable happens. Okay, so the dual is changed in only one way. So there is a C that you see here, right? So that C comes here. Other than that, the dual remains perfectly as it was before. Okay. So one thing that we can observe from the primal. So if you look at the primal now, So the only difference that I have shown is in this red color, and the only difference in the dual that comes in is that the C that was in the primal that appears here. Okay, other than that, they are pretty much the same. Okay, so now so this is the only difference. And now one observation is, if you increase C, right? So if you increase C, then what happens? That means there is a adverse cost. Okay, yeah, I don't know the spell. Yeah, adverse. I think I got the spelling quite wrong. So adverse cost on xi-ice. So basically, if C increases, you discourage C-ice because you are minimizing something, right? So what that does, it actually reduces the margin. So this reduces the margin. Okay. So I hope this is also easy enough to read. And if C tends to infinity, right? So in the dual problem, as C tends to infinity, this becomes the dual problem of this case, right? So if see here, there is no upper bound. What does that mean? If there is no upper bound in a problem, it means that the mu i's are allowed to take as large value as possible. There is no restriction. So in that sense, if you treat the C as infinity, then that actually becomes the dual of this problem. Okay. So I'm not saying that C equal to infinity makes this problem identical to this, because a primal problem here, right? So this will only work on problems which are linearly separable. Here there is inbuilt, no matter what the large C that you choose to put, there is always xi-ice here. Okay, so there is a tolerance that is built. So this will always converge to something. And in our problem formulation, right, whenever we are doing optimization problem, all our variables have to be finite. So you cannot give C equal to infinity like this and hope things will work. So in that sense, the similarity that you see by setting C equal to infinity between this dual and the hard margin dual is just yeah, it's just not that same. Okay, so any case, I hope this was clear. So let's look at some demo to see how this works. Okay, so let me just go to my. All right, so here is a small demo. So first, yeah, so this is, I took this from sklearn kit. So sklearn is having a lot of interesting examples for you to, if you want to learn some of the machine learning techniques, you can go through the sklearn toolkit. There are a lot of interesting things that are there. So what we do here in this example is that we create a bunch of points, and the bunch of points are also labeled. So there are these two colors that we have chosen to label, and then we use a perceptron. So from yesterday's class, we know that this is not a suitable thing. Why? Because the hyperplane is passing through one of the training points. So if there is any error in measurement of the training points, this is not very desirable. Okay. So what we do now is we define an SVM machine, like SVM setup for this. So in the SVM solution, so we use the linear kernel, which we will see what is a kernel very soon. But linear just means we are using the original features as it is and trying to find hyperplanes to separate it. And with a large C, the hope is it will discourage any kind of xi terms from being non-zero. Okay. So remember, so here in the original problem, when we have large C, it is an adverse cost on xi. So all the xi's will be set to 0. That is why we have set a value like that. Okay. So when we do this, and when you, so there are some interesting things here. Okay. So I will not go through describing this whole thing in a detail, but what essentially happens is that you first find out W and B using SVM, and then for every small chunks here, you evaluate the value of the W transpose X plus B on each of the X's, and then you are only showing the value for -1, 1, 0 and -1. So you are showing only for 3 levels, 1, 0 and -1. 0 is W transpose X plus B equal to 0 is this line. So like that. Okay, so that is the way, that is the reason why you see some of this code. Okay, So I don't know if that makes sense, but you can actually go through this and you can let me know if you have any questions here. Okay. So, but any case, these are the lines, and those support vectors that were chosen, that is those points with mu I is greater than 0, those are now circled. Okay. So that is what is the demo showing. And yeah, that's pretty much about it. And there is one result which I didn't mention. So I think now is a good time to tell. So in terms of, see, if you look at the primal, there is already this W transpose W is like a regularization term, right? You can already see that there is a penalty for imposed for having very complicated Ws. So in that sense, SVM already has some kind of regularization built in. Okay. So because this regularization is built in, its performance is very good in terms of actually fitting real world data. So there is one result which we are going to just state without any proof that says the total E out of, okay, E out of your SVM, okay, expected value of E out if you wish. This one is going to be less than or equal to number of support vectors divided by total number of points. Okay. So there is one interesting result. So point I'm trying to say is that SVM already has a built-in regularization coming in. And as a result, if you are able to get a separation with very few support vectors, then you are assured that you will do well in the out of sample. So this is quite remarkable. So that's why support vector machines are so popular. Okay, so this, you can use support vector machines whenever you have tens of thousands of data, not more. Up to 10,000 it will work fine because this is a QP. So we will also explain, I will also go through why this is a QP once again, but you can see there are this this mu I, mu j terms. These are the optimization variables and they are getting multiplied. So that's why this is a QP, but I will show you more properly when we are discussing kernel SVM in few minutes. Okay. So any case, so this is a interesting result. So this was the first demo I showed you was for linearly separable case. So now we will modify that example a little bit. And so this is the original SVM as you saw, and we will add a few points which makes our vector, our support vectors, our data, not linearly separable, but we will add points such that the margin reduces. Okay. So there are few points that I have added. So where have I added? So let us see. So these are the points that I have added to the original training set to make my margin smaller. Okay. So now if I were to ask you, if I want to suppose increase this margin, what will you do? Suppose I'm not happy with this thin margin. Suppose I want to increase this. So what is the way I should do this?
Reduce the value of C.
Yeah, so that is what we will do. So so here C was 1000. So we reduce the value of C to 1. Okay, this what it does, you remember? So go back to the original problem. When you reduce the value of C, you're allowing xi to get like bigger, right? Because if C gets small, the impact of having non-zero xi is minimized. So then essentially it is a trade-off between these two. So one is on one side you have margin, and on the other side what do you have? This is reciprocal of margin, and this is the like a violations that you are permitting. So in that sense, if you reduce C, you are actually allowing for a wider margin and reducing even the xis. Okay. So that is what we will do. So when you reduce C, now what happens? Whatever was the original support vectors here, those are going to continue to remain, and then there are two additional things. So in the context of large margin, soft margin classifiers, the support vectors. So in the context of the hard margin, if you remember our discussion from yesterday, in the context of hard margin, we called our S as the collection of all the points where mu i's are strictly greater than 0, right? So because of that, in the context of soft margin as well, we will have the same thing. So we will look at S as a collection of all I such that your mu I is bigger than 0, okay, and it is less than or equal to C. So all the points will be considered, okay, and whenever mu I is equal to C, that actually are points where there is violation. Okay, so those things, if we are having time today, I will show you the dual, then you can check all that. But I don't know if we will have that much time. But nevertheless, the idea still remains. If you change the C, you will be able to get a wider margin. Okay, so this was the second demo. I will share the code with you later. You can go through this. So let us now move on to the third important topic here. So that is what is called as kernel SVM. So let's do that. So are there any questions so far? Okay, fine. I hope nobody has any questions. All right. So now, yeah.
Sir, xis are the distance between the this path, no, sir. So
Uh,
if you decrease C, then how the distance is increasing?
okay.
Through
Okay.
C.
Okay. So here, this is Vipul. This is this component 1/2 W transpose W is proportional to the 1/, margin. Is that okay?
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Got
So
it.
when you increase speed, yeah, I think it's okay now, right?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. 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 Yeah. So now coming back to kernel SVM. So let us first of all understand why these kind of problems are called QPs. Okay. So QPs. Okay. So what you can do, whenever you have a matrix which is having double summation and something like okay, so xi okay, so let me just yeah, so whenever you have a double summation and with these kind of symmetric terms, right, see you have mu I and xi, then mu j, yj and xj. What you can do is you can construct a matrix q, okay, which is like this, y1 y1 x1 transpose x1, okay, then y1 y2 x1 transpose x2. See, x1 transpose x1 is a number, x1, so any xi transpose xj is a number, okay. I hope all of you can appreciate that. So when you have these kind of double summations, you can construct a matrix like this. So final one will be y1 yn x1 transpose xn, okay, and similarly you can do here will be y2 y1 x1 x2 transpose x1. So these values and these values, the mirror image of these points across the diagonal, they are always going to be same, because x1 transpose x2 is same as x2 transpose x1, y1 y2 are numbers, okay. So like that I can write this. So what happens next? So this is y2 y2 x2 transpose x2 and all the way till y2 yn x2 transpose xn. Like this we can write the full matrix. Okay, so when we put this as q, what happens to the original problem? Basically what you will get is the dual problem will change a little bit. It's a maximization problem anyway. So summation mu I is same as 1 transpose mu, where mu is a vector with entries, mu1, mu2, all the way till mu j. Okay. So this summation mu I is same as 1 transpose mu. You will get that minus half mu transpose q mu. That is what you will get. Okay. And what are the constraints? Subject to mu transpose y is equal to 0 and mu as a vector is bigger than 0 and is smaller than c. Okay, so now whenever if you have used quadratic program like libraries, what you need to specify are these vectors, these matrices q. You can specify in your vector program this kind of a input, and it will give you all the solutions. So given the mu's, let me remind you how we constructed our solution, right? So given the mu's, we get w star is given by summation. If you don't remember, that's fine. You can go back and check. It is very simple. It is just mu I by I xi, right? So here I only consider i's that belong to the support vectors. So this was how we got w star, and then we can get v star by looking at yi minus. Okay, again this you can check. Yi minus w star transpose xi. I hope this is what it xi yi. I hope this is what it was. Yeah. So yesterday, if anyone remembers, was this what we did? Otherwise, I may have to derive it.
Sir, I think the last yi wasn't there.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. So yeah. So I mean I don't remember these things. I just derive whenever required. So that's why there is some confusion sometimes. Here, in the case of the soft margin, there is only one difference. So here we have to pick a I such that mu I is greater than 0, but it is all at the same time strictly less than C. Okay, this is required to do this. You can again check why this strictly less than C is required. Okay, but it is easy. Nevertheless, this will give us W star and B, and then we are ready to like deploy this. So okay, in deployment, what we do, we given a test point, x test, right? So what we will do is we will do W transpose. So we will do W star transpose xt, okay, plus B star. If this number is greater than 0, you will report yi is equal to plus 1, and if this W star transpose x transpose plus B star is less than 0, you will report yi is equal to minus 1. Perhaps just to be sure, you can put equality in one of the sides, but that doesn't change much. Okay, so now this is so now we can see that the dual program is a instance of QP. Okay, and one question here which you may be wondering is, why didn't I put mu I mu j also as part of this? Does anyone know? I can put mu1 square, mu1 mu2, mu1 mu n. I could have put it in the same queue itself. Why did I not put? Okay, so I will let you think about it. All right. So now.
So I think the gradient will be easy to find.
Okay. No, it is just a simple reason. Just because mu's are the optimization variables and q is a data that is given to you. You can completely compute q based on the input data. So this is a fixed matrix, whereas mu's are variables. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So for that reason, we are computing q, but we are not putting mu's as part of this, because q is an input data. So this is a constant. Q is a constant for a training sample. Okay. So now what we have seen so far, if you just do a quick summary, we have seen 3 cases, right? So when we have linearly separable, what do we have? We can use hard margin. Okay. And then if we don't have linearly separable, not linearly separable. Okay, and the not linearly separable, and the extent by which it's not linearly separable is a mild case. Okay, if it's a mild situation, then what we can use, you can use soft margin. Okay, so now we will look at if it is not linearly separable. Okay, and severely not linearly separable. Okay, severely. So that means you cannot really hope to get any linear separations possible at all. Okay, then what do? That leads us to what is called as kernel SVM. Okay, so that is what I'm going to describe now. So an example of not linearly separable is this case, right? So if you look at data in such a way that all your negative points, suppose they are lying close to the origin. So okay, all your positive points are lying close to the origin, and your negative points are lying far from the origin. Okay. So suppose your features are like this. So given this kind of a situation, there is really no linearly separable thing that you can get to separate this. So we know this. So for this kind of a problem, there is a solution. What is the solution?
Change the feature space.
Yeah. So what you do is you change the features into a higher dimensional feature. So what you do is your original X was X1, X2. Okay. So this is for a particular training data. Okay. So I hope people will not get confused between X1, X2, and maybe I will put a small number here. So let's call it height and weight. Okay, so that you understand that each data point xi has a particular height and a particular weight. Okay, so so ideally what you want to say is all the positive points are within some circle like this. Right, so this is a condition like height square plus weight square is less than some constant c. We need to find the c. So in the original space, there is no hope of finding these kind of numbers, but in the higher dimensional space, you can do it. So what we will do is we will take phi of xi and we will construct new features zi, which is equal to some function of phi of xi, which what it does is it will look at hi wi, original thing it will preserve, then it will take hi wi, and then it will also look at hi square and wi square. Okay, and this will be, every feature will be transformed like this. And when you transform a feature like this, then essentially what you are trying to learn is, instead of these, like you had w0, w1 and w2, right? This is what you were learning in the linear case. In the high dimensional case, we are looking at w0, w1, w2, w3, w4, w5, right? So in the higher dimensional case, what we are learning now is that we are learning more parameters. Instead of just 3 parameters, we are learning 6 parameters. Okay, so this is what is the idea. Okay, so what is the disadvantage of this idea?
We might not know beforehand what functions to include of the initial features.
Yes, so that is, suppose if before even talking about whether we know or not, suppose even if I knew, there is still a disadvantage. What would be that?
Sir, if we have in the original data, we have a lot of dimensions, and also we need more than like 2. I mean, rather than h1 square and w1 square, we want even higher terms, higher degree terms. Then it will blow up the feature vector.
Yes, so yeah, that is essentially the problem, right? So even with 2, you see that it has become 6 here. Okay, so when you take higher and higher, suppose instead of these 2, if there were height, weight, and let us say 2 more things, blood pressure, heart rate, and if you square it, then you will get far more terms. Okay, so the disadvantage is it is called as curse of dimensionality. Okay.
So I have a doubt.
Yeah.
So in place of all these new 3 features, why can't we just add one more feature, which is the z-axis? For the maybe the positive examples, the z will be 1, and for the negative, it will be 0.
So what feature you want me to add?
So instead of the new 3 features, hi, wi, hi square, wi square, I'm saying that we can add only one feature, zi, or maybe xi.
Okay.
And that xi will be 1 for the positive and xi will be 0 for the negative examples.
No, that is if you do something like that, you are actually training. You are making your classifier memorize it, right? So if you do that, it is going to be memorizing the training set, right? Right? I mean, you want to.
But if we know that our positive examples are going to lie inside that circle and our negative examples are going to be farther from it, then why can't we just shift the planes? So I'm just essentially shifting the plane for both the examples.
Yeah. So if you add like 1 to both of them, it will just I don't know why you mean to say instead of this, shall I add 1 hi wi? Is it?
No, not to both of them, but for the positive examples, I'm saying add 1, and for the negative examples, I'm saying add 0.
Yeah. So you can do that, but your test points, how will you know which is 1, which is 0?
Okay, right.
Yeah. Okay. So anyway, that is, and even for more than that, you cannot even plot the data and see. I know that I don't need any of this. I can just take hi square and wi square, right? So that much only I need for my zi's. Why don't I do this? Can someone tell me why we can't do this?
So we can't know beforehand what all will be required.
Yes, and even if you plot it and then do it, then that becomes like data snooping, right? You are then cheating yourself, because now it came like this, but for some other person, you may get something, more like this. Suppose if it comes, for you, it came perfectly lying in a circle, but for somebody else, it came out in this shape. Then your just idea of just putting these 2 features will not help, right? So this is that instance of data snooping. So this is different from domain knowledge. If you know something from domain knowledge, that is not data snooping, that is fine. But if you are just plotting the points and then trying to utilize based on the point structure something, that is data snooping. Okay, I hope the difference is clear. Okay, so now there is a curse of dimensionality, which is I will have these kind of cross terms, and there is an explosion if there are too many d-dimensional features are there. And if I go to d, like square, okay, from linear, if I go to polynomial of degree 2, even then there are d square number of things coming. So if d is 10, d square will be 100. So it is like very drastic. So that actually has curse of dimensionality, and based on whatever we have been learning in the statistical learning theory, we also know this will lead to overfitting. Okay, these 2 things are what is going to happen. So now SVM actually solves both of these problems quite elegantly. Okay, so the way to see that is we have to focus our attention back to this case. Okay, so let us go to this. So when you have something like this, okay, so if I want to transform this xi's to zi's, right? So the only change that comes in really, okay, so it's overshooting. Right, the only place where there is any change is the problem exactly remains the same. The only places xi is coming is here. Okay, so here instead of having xi transpose xj, you will have phi of xi transpose phi of xj. Okay, so but the original see for a optimization problem, the time that it takes to execute, it only depends upon the number of optimization variables, number of constraints that are there. Okay, so even in the higher dimensional space, I have not increased the number of variables. Is that clear? Because the number of training samples is I equal to 1 to n here also, here also. All I am doing is I need to compute this phi of xi transpose phi of xj for all the training points. I have to compute and get that done. So this will take some time to compute, right? If I have to do phi of xi transpose phi of xj, assuming that if the input data points is d, right, and phi of x is like becomes d square, so I will have some more computation to do. I have to compute d square terms and I have to take the multiplication. In that sense, it is a little more expensive. But other than that, the optimization problem itself doesn't have too many variable changes. Okay, so now there is one more trick which is called as a kernel trick. Okay, so kernel idea, I will say. So what that is that you can define a function k of xi xj, okay, which is equal to 1 plus xi transpose xj whole square. Okay, so suppose if you could do this, so what will it do? Suppose I take a function k of xi xj and that does this. So let us try to take our example of height 1, weight 1. Okay. Right, so what I'm saying is, yeah, so if you take our height and weight example, hi, wi, and let me try to do this, right? So what does it give? Let us see. So you will have 1 plus hi wi, okay, and corresponding to xj, we will have, what is that? hj and wj. Okay, so if I try to square this, what will I get? 1 plus hi square hj square, right? So hi square, and just for making it evident, hi square hj square, then what else? wi square wj square, right? Okay, then what else? 2 hi hj wi wj, correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, and there will also be 2 hi hj as well. So let us do that. I think I'm making a mess, but in any case, let me just persist. Hi hj, hi wi, hi hj wj. Is this correct? Have I missed any other terms?
So 2 wi wj.
2 wi wj. Okay. So now what you can see, this actually is inner product between two vectors of this form. Okay, so this is same as inner product between two vectors. So let me continue with this color business for some more time. So one, this is square root 2 hi, okay, then square root 2 wi. What else? What else? Then square root 2 hi wi. Okay, that will take care of this. Then hi square and wi square. Hi square and wi square. This inner product Let me write the other thing in red. Hj Wj Hj square Wj square. Okay, so what actually we are doing through this kernel is actually we are doing a transformation to a higher dimension space. Okay, so this is equal to, if you really think about it, this is equal to some phi of xi transpose some phi of xj, where phi of xi is this transformation. So from your original space of h1 w1, we have gone to a higher dimensional space in this manner. So does it make sense that we are, so now what is the advantage? So if you had done this in the original space itself, right? So if you had actually gone to this individually, and if you had taken the dot product, you have to compute all these terms, which are like d square number of terms you would have to compute. Okay, so it is a more costlier operation if you did directly here. But if you do this operation, xi transpose xj is a small cost. It is almost the same cost as you would have had in the original space. So in that sense, the movement into higher dimensional kernel was extremely easy. Okay, so in fact, if you want to go to k dimension, so what does that imply? So if you take this problem, right? If you take this problem and you put in wherever that phi I transpose phi j is there, instead of that, we will put the kernel function now. So this is what was the original problem. We will replace this with k of xi xj. So this k of xi xj, what it does is the advantages is no curse of dimensionality. Okay, and secondly, no overfitting. Why no overfitting? Because if the number of support vectors, that property is still true. If you are able to get less number of support vectors by total number of points, if this is still small, then you are still okay. The idea is there is already half W transpose W built in somewhere. Okay. So I hope this is clear. So only one thing that remains to see is how do you deploy this, right? So we understand this. So we understood that instead of doing Zi transpose Zj, we are doing some kernel Xi transpose Xj. The idea is the phi I transpose phi j directly will be extremely expensive. So instead of that, we will use kernel. And the advantages of using this approach, of course, no cursor of dimensionality and no overfitting. This is coming due to SVM, not because of kernel business. It is coming due to SVM. Okay, so now we have to see what happens in our original space, right? So how do we deploy it? So if we go back to the place where we have written the deployment algorithm, like the deployment steps. So let me take that. So we had this, right? This is in the original space. In the modified space, what happens? We understand that this cannot no longer be used. This will be phi of xi, right? And this will be, so maybe I should write it in a different color to highlight that. Okay, phi of xi, and this will be phi of xi, right? So this is what we had to change, right? So now, even though you have gone into the kernel and you have avoided this, but still you are unhappy because you have got phi of xi, right? But even this can be removed. How? Let us see that. So let me again copy this. Okay, so this is our original thing, right? So now, if you want to deploy this, what will you do? So remember, deployment. So we will do W star transpose xi plus b, right? And if it is greater than 0, you take one path. Otherwise, some other part, right? Yi. So in the modified space, right? So in the modified world, we can't use this. So we will have to, instead of using phi xi, we will have to use, sorry, xi, we will have to use phi xi, right? So now this is where we will be able to get some benefit. Okay. So yeah, so coming to this, I have to see how this works out for B, but I will just show you for this one term. So when we are doing W star transpose phi of xi, it becomes what? So it becomes summation mu I yi phi of xi transpose xi test point, right? There is a test point here. So let us say, instead of writing xi, let me write xt. Okay, so when you take the test point, so you will get phi of xi transpose phi of x test point. Okay, so this is what it is, and now this is now again back to the kernel. So in that sense, we can actually do very high dimensional things as well as easily if you have a kernel. So now there is one more kernel which is called as, so I don't remember how we get rid of the B star here. I have to think about it a little bit. Oh yeah, this is also fine because W star is also this, right? So this one will become B star is equal to Yi minus W star is this, right? So it will be I belonging to S mu I yi phi of xi, right? So this is, let us say this is phi j. So this will become kernel of xi xj. Okay, so the whole thing can be done away with. I can completely forget what my higher dimensional space is. I can completely forget it. Okay, so if I go to k in the polynomial kernel, so if I go to polynomial kernel with 1 plus xi transpose xj to the power of k, I go to the kth dimension space. In fact, if I go use Gaussian radial basis functions, okay, I can go to infinite dimensional space. Okay, the kernel there is e power minus gamma xi minus xj square. So if I use this, I'm in the infinite dimensional space. Okay, and I really don't have any problem. The performance will be almost as good as in the original space. So coming back to the problem, linearly separable we have seen, soft margin we have seen. Now we have to see a demo for non-linearly separable. So that is also pretty easy. So you look at a points like this. So now in this example, the points are in a like a concentric circles. Okay, so if you look at this, there is no linear separation that you can get using any values of C. You can't do it. Okay, so however, if I choose degree of this 2, if I choose a degree 2, that means I am able to get circles, right? So this should work. And if you do it, you will actually get neat classification like this. Okay, so this is using degree 2. And if you use Gaussian radial basis functions, you get even better. You are able to get all these operations much nicely. Okay, so yeah, so now here there are more number of support points, and you may think the performance will come low, but there is one thing that I didn't go into too many details. Okay, so I said the out of sample performance, right? So out of sample error is less than or equal to, I said, what was that, number of support vectors by n, right? Actually, it is not just this. It is actually a minimum amongst this, and then there is a function of your margin and your data itself. Okay. So basically, this function, as the margin increases, the error term also, this f reduces. So f has a property that f reduces as margin increases. Okay, so even though when you have a larger margin, the number of support vectors may become more, but due to this other term, you will be able to get better performance out of sample. So this is what you can get. So there is one problem here. Okay, so I want you to go back and change this degree to 3 and see what happens. If you change the degree to 3, we are looking at third degree polynomials. See, third degree polynomial also captures a second degree polynomial. Okay, but I am not able to make it work for any value of C. I'm not able to get it into this kind of a neat shape. So see if you can solve this. If you can experiment it, if you can come up with your own kernel which can solve this, that would be very good. Okay, so any case, so this is the third part. So yeah, so we are done. I think all the aspects that I wanted to cover is all over. So I don't have anything more to say. In fact, there are a few things about how you choose a kernel, what functions can be a kernel. All those discussions are there, but due to lack of time and the online mode, there is only that many things we can cover. Okay, but I wanted to show you how to write the dual for this, but that I couldn't do. Perhaps I will make a recording and I will share it with you. Okay, so that's about it. So I have finished in time. I didn't want to make you wait in the last class. All right, so thank you everybody. So let me know if you have any questions. I will hang back if there are any questions. Otherwise, good luck for your exam.
Sir?
Yeah.
So can we see the kernel idea again? I didn't get the inferences which we made there. Like,
okay, so the
idea of kernel.
Yeah, so the kernel idea is, if you look at, so the idea, first of all, the problem. Do you understand the problem?
Yes, sir. I understand that it will blow up, like many terms will.
Yes. Okay. So now
Sir,
what we
the problem, sir, I have a doubt in the problem itself.
Yeah.
Is the problem that there will be very, very long vectors due to which the computational costs will be higher? Is that the only problem? Or
which one? Which problem are you talking about?
Sir, that when we make Zi, then the dimension will be much higher, so it will lead to higher computational costs.
Yeah, because whatever your original features were just 2 dimension. Now I will have to take all kinds of higher features. That will take time to compute, and also it will become very big, right? So originally, if it was D, and if I take the square features, I will get D square. Correct?
Yes, sir. So, sir, yes, sir, I agree with this, that this is one problem. I also want to ask if the following is also another problem, that if we have the same number of training data points and the dimension of each data point increases, then we will in a way have like insufficient data to learn any patterns.
Yes, that is the overfitting problem, because if you have to learn too many parameters, you better have that many training samples. If you don't have that many training samples, having too many features is actually a problem for you. This is what we learned in the statistical learning theory, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, because when you are trying to learn more parameters, you better have 10 times the number of parameters that you are learning. But your data points are fixed. If you just square it or cube it or something, the features, if you increase, the parameters will also increase accordingly. Yes?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Yeah. So now coming to kernel idea.
How are we saying it overfitting? I also didn't get that.
No, overfitting means, see, when you have too many parameters, you will be able to learn any kind of surface, any kind of thing you will be able to get, right? So what I mean is, if you are having 100 parameters and if your data points are very, very like this, right? So if you try to put 100 parameters and learn, you'll get something like this also you can learn. Because you are having so many parameters, you'll end up memorizing your training data, right? See, this is very similar to when we looked at trying to fit a high degree polynomial. If you try to fit a high degree polynomial with a lot of noise, it will do it well because there are too many parameters anyway.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Got it.
Okay, so let me, before answering these questions, it's already 3. So those of you who would like to leave, that's fine. I will just answer these questions. I will upload the discussion also, so you can watch it at the end. Okay, yeah. So now coming to the kernel idea, what Siddharth was asking. So Siddharth, you understood the problem, right?
So the dimensions will increase, like.
Yeah. So now the solution. Okay, so now what we do is, suppose there is a function k of xi xj which is doing this. Okay, Siddharth, how long does it take to compute this? Is this hard to compute? So the cost of computing this is almost same as the cost of computing xi transpose xj, right? Do you agree, Siddharth?
There will be some multiplications extra.
One extra multiplication, right? Xi transpose xj I will get. Then I have to add 1 to it and multiply another one single extra multiplication. Correct?
So here xi xj
Are the training samples, are the training sample of ith sample and the jth sample. Okay.
Yes sir. Okay, got it.
So this is not too costly to compute. Okay. So now what we do is we try to just expand this in terms of how it will do if I just do it algebraically, what it becomes. If you see, this is how it splits up. I might have done some mistakes here. If that is there, just ignore it. But Siddharth, do you understand how from xi, each xi I'm taking it as hi wi, okay, and I'm writing that and taking this. Is this okay, this computation till here, this algebra, Siddharth?
Yes sir. Up till the algebra is also fine.
Yeah, so now what this is actually, if you really pull out all the blue terms and the red terms, you see that we are doing an inner transpose here. This algebra is actually effectively doing phi of xi transpose phi of xj, where phi of xi is actually in the much higher dimensional space, correct?
Yes sir.
So if I directly went to phi of xi and phi of xj and multiplied, that would have been expensive. But kernel trick has short circuited that expensive operation. I'm able to do it in almost the same cost as xi xj, correct?
No, sir, I didn't understand how it is almost the same cost.
Because xi transpose xj, this you will compute, it will give you a number. So that plus 1 is almost, I mean, that is nothing. It's just a simple addition by 1. I don't think even it matters. But then squaring it, that is also the one extra multiplication, right?
Okay. Yes, sir. Understood, sir.
Okay, so now in that sense, this is very cheap. But if you actually try to do H1, W1, HI, WI, all of these cross terms, if you try to do for every training sample, for every phi of xi, it will take a lot of time to first get this. And then you have to also multiply them. So that will become much more expensive. The cost of k of xi, xj, this is almost some order of d, the d being the dimension of your data. Whereas if I do phi of xi transpose phi of xj, right, the cost is order of d square, because I have to compute this for every training data set I should do, and then I should multiply, correct? Siddharth?
Yes sir. Now
Yes.
Now
So now this is only for 2 dimension. If I go to 3 dimension, I can get even better performance. So in that sense, this replacing this with a kernel function is a very clever idea, because that reduces our difficulty, because the idea is the dual optimization variables don't change when you go to higher dimensional space. Only this part would have changed, and that part also now we are able to replace it quite cleverly. Okay. Yes.
Sir, originally what did we write in the dual instead of kernel? What was there?
Xi transpose xj, it was xi transpose xj. Okay, so this becomes xi will become phi of xi transpose phi of xj, right? If you go into the higher dimension. Okay, and that higher dimension calculation would have been very expensive, so that we can now do away with. Okay, so Siddharth, Solanki, is it clear to you now?
Yes sir, now it's clear. So we actually approximated our phi of xi using this technique where we don't have to calculate that much.
Yes, it is not approximate, it is perfectly calculated, right? So the higher dimensional features are perfectly done. So it's, of course, there is a small constant that is coming in here, but that is okay. But the main ideas are here. The HIs, WIs, HI, WI, everything is here, correct?
Sir, but even that 1 is extra.
So one would have been there even if I went to the original space, right? See, whenever we are doing linear, this kind of a problem, when you are trying to find a perceptron, there is always the constant term coming in. Otherwise, it will be W transpose X, and that will be a line which is always passing through the origin. So one is intercept term is always there. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So now there is one other half of the story that you should also pay attention to, right? So when you want to deploy it, you have to see what is happening. When you try to deploy it, you have to compute W star B star, right? So here phi of xi will again come, which is problem, right? Because phi of xi could be an infinite dimensional representation, right? So if you take Gaussian RBF, it's actually going to infinite dimensions. So here the polynomial thing is at least k dimensions, so you can hope to compute this. But in the case of Gaussian, the terms are going to be infinite dimensions. I haven't shown this, but you can check some internet resource where it says why this is infinite dimensional. But nevertheless, the problem is that we can't compute phi of xi directly. Okay, so this is still a problem, and the way we get around that is when we deploy it, we have to do W star transpose X. So that becomes W star transpose phi of X. So in that sense, when you are doing phi of X, you already get a phi of X transpose phi of this kind of transpose terms comes, and then you can replace that also with a kernel. And B, when you try to compute B star, there is W star transpose some phi of xj. That also will become like a function of the kernel. So in that sense, we completely do away with the higher dimensional space. We don't even care what that phi is. We are still able to work in a higher dimensional space just with the kernel idea. Okay? Yes?
Sir, I didn't follow this point.
No. So now when you want to deploy, you will get W star B star, and then you have to do W star transpose X test plus B, correct? When you want to deploy this, when you want to use this algorithm. Does that make sense? This you have to do, right?
Yes.
So in the transform space, it is W star transpose phi of X test, correct? In the transform space, X becomes phi of X, because now I'm working in a higher dimension, I should use the appropriate features. Yes, no?
But sir, once it has already created that, can't we return?
Sure. No, if you go to 2 dimension, there will be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 features, right? So W will also have 6 different components, right? So W size depends upon what is the size of the vector phi of xi, correct?
Yes, sir.
So this is so phi of xi, if it is infinity, there is nothing you can do really with W star and B star, right? Conceptually, if you think phi of xi is an infinite dimensional vector, there is you can't even store it, you can't even compute it. Siddharth?
Yes, sir.
So now we will not do anything right away. What we will do is during deployment, we understand that we have to do W star transpose this. So when you try to transpose, something nice happens. This phi of xi transpose phi of xt comes, and that we know how to compute using kernel thing. Okay, so that is what we do. Siddharth, do you follow this?
Sir, but if our phi was already infinite dimensional, how did we even like?
Yeah, we didn't directly do this inner product. We can't do the inner product, but we have a kernel function which does this equivalent thing. Correct? The kernel function was internally doing this, but without having actually done this, it is able to get that.
So what we are saying is that phi was very high, like tending to infinite dimensional, but we sort of came up with a function that approximates.
Not approximates, does it perfectly. Okay, so no approximation here. It does it perfectly. Right? Because if you see here, the example that I showed you, this is a perfect phi of x and phi of xj, right? It's perfectly doing the inner product, but it is not doing this and then computing. It is doing it in one step over here itself. Yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that way we are actually making our life easy by doing this. Okay, so now it is easy. The number of support vectors are, you know what they are. You know what is mu I, you know my yi, you know xi. The test point anyway, you know, you compute this, you'll get some number. To that, you add the B star that you can compute also. So B star, how are you computing? You have to pick a J which is strictly lying between 0 and C, and you have to compute this number. Again, there is a problem. Phi of xj I cannot do, but W star is actually sum of some phi of xj's. Even though you cannot compute this and you cannot compute this, when you put them together, you are able to compute B star. Correct? Because this phi of x transpose this comes. So that gives again goes back to kernel. Right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So this idea can also be used. This kernel idea can be used in many places. Okay. There is a bunch of literature based on just this idea. There is kernel PCA. Okay, and many other techniques where people use this. So any case that we will not be able to go through here, but I hope into the context of SVM at least things are clear. So any other questions you have, Siddharth?
Sir, it's clear now.
Okay, very good.
Sir,
All right.
I
Yeah.
have a question. Sir,
Yeah.
I didn't understand how this kernel trick solves that second problem of
Deployment. Overfitting. Okay. Overfitting it is doing because the guarantees that I am giving you in SVM is that it is, so Vapnik, he proved this, right? So he proved that the overfitting error is number of support vectors by n. It doesn't matter what is xi, xj. Okay. So he has proved that.
So sir, how was it a problem in the first place?
In the first place, so the way why was he able to prove something like that is because there was already a W transpose W built in our primal, right? So in that sense, he's able to, there is already this kind of a factor coming in. Okay, so because, see, the whole idea is when you do a line, there are the number of ways in which you can shatter a bunch of points, right? That will be much higher than when you have to choose some kind of a width like this. Okay, so in that sense, the design of SVM already had some good things which allowed for this kind of a thing. So, yeah, so to answer you, because there is already a regularization term built in that is able to do this kind of a thing, like it's able to solve the overfitting issue, because you, at the end of the day, all you are learning is the support vectors. For really doing a support vector machine type of algorithm, you need to only know the support vectors. So that how many parameters are there? Only 2, for example, in this case, right? So given just you are learning 2 parameters, that if you are able to do, that means you are still in a good world, right? So remember, the problem with the higher dimensional world was that you are having so many parameters to learn. So as d square parameters, if you have to learn, then you will have overfitting. But if the number of support vectors are small, you are just learning the number of support vectors itself, which is much fewer than d square. So there are multiple ways in which you can rationalize. Okay, but to prove it, you have to sit and go through the proof. I'm just telling you the intuition because the proof is beyond the course. But I don't know, Siddharth, whether this makes sense or not.
Yes, sir. Maybe.
Because the idea, there are a couple of things that are there. First is W transpose W is built in here. Second is the support vector machine just depends upon which are the support vectors. If you are learning few support vectors, even though it's a high dimensional space, ultimately the few support vectors that are the ones that matter, correct? So in that sense, you are already getting some reduction. And then you also, these are the 2 reasons that you can see directly in the problem formulation itself. But the actual proof is of course beyond this course. But the idea there is that the guarantees hold irrespective of the feature dimension that you are living in. So in that sense, this will hold even if you use original or if you use higher dimensional features. So in that sense, this still continues to hold. Okay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Yeah. Maybe someday I will also. I mean, it's huge proofs. You should see Vapnik's textbook. He has written a textbook on statistical learning theory. Okay, so it's difficult to get these kind of things in a undergraduate class. So It will be, yeah. So maybe if you study these things in postgraduate level, maybe you will go through these things. So just on the note, so we are done now. So just I would like you to go back and experiment here, right? So one thing that I again want you to see, the problem is, here is a problem to which there is no satisfactory answer. And the problem is you are having only a single regularization because of which it's happening. So the problem is as follows. If you change the degree to 3, you will not be able to recover this kind of a separation, even though degree 3 captures a degree 2 polynomial within it. Okay, so you just try out if you can make it work. Okay, no matter what value of C you give, you will not get this back if you are using a degree 3. Okay, so this is something for you to try out in holidays, and if you're able to solve, let me know. And of course, Gaussian kernel anyway does very well, so it's able to do it no matter how. So if you use, you try to experiment with even the Gaussian kernel, the radial basis function, it does very well. So you just try out with different training sets. It looks very elegant. Okay. So any case, so that's about it. I don't have anything more to add. So unless there are any questions, we'll stop here.
So I had just one more question.
Yeah.
When we're using the radial basis function, W is going to be of infinite dimension.
That is right, because you are having e power minus gamma. This is like your xi. This is like xi minus xj transpose xi minus xj, right? And e power, when you take it becomes like infinite series you can get. So in that sense, if you just expand this and look, you can show.
So it won't ever be a problem for us to use the classifier, right? Because we're just using the multiplicative term during deployment.
During deployment, yes, because you are always using the kernels in this problem formulation, and in the deployment you are also using the kernel. We don't use this, but you use this, so there is no problem as such. So you can get.
So, but then how did you plot it?
No. Yeah. So this is again. So first of all, we don't have to really do all of these things at all. There is all the libraries that do it for us. So to plot this, what we do, it's a good question that you're asking. So what we do is you divide this entire region into small chunks. Okay, and once you have learned your data, you evaluate all the points. On each of the point, you evaluate W transpose phi of xi plus b. Okay, so we can do that, right? Using the kernel, we can compute this. What is this? This thing, right? Devyani, can't we do this?
Yes, sir, yes.
So you do it, and then what you say is you show the levels -1, 0, and 1. So that is how you get this.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So you can see there is some mesh grid and something and all we do. I don't understand it fully. Neither I'm too much worried about it. But you can spend some time and look at it. It's not too complicated.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sir, I just wanted to confirm, we have gone into this dual thing because of this kernel idea, right?
Yeah. So yeah, that is correct, Bhavna. So this is the whole benefit. So yesterday you were asking me, what is the benefit of going to dual? This is where it is beneficial. I hope now you can appreciate this, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
This you cannot get in primal space, right? Primal space has where is the primal? It is all deeply somewhere. Yeah, here. This you cannot get in the primal. So that is the benefit. Okay, there are many more benefit. Wonderful things happen in the dual space. Okay, so yeah, if you are doing some research on with some mathematics, some interesting things, you will always have dual. Okay, so that's good. Yeah, so are there any questions? Shall we stop here? Okay, so yeah, so thank you everybody. So good luck for your exams. Let me just stop the recording as well.